In 2023, a team at Johns Hopkins was analyzing stool samples from remote populations when they found something that shouldn't exist. DNA sequences that matched no known pathogen, no known bacteria, no known virus. The genetic material was ancient, primitive, unlike anything in modern medical databases. When they finally identified the source, the discovery changed everything we thought we knew about human health. The samples contained living parasites that were genetically identical to fossils found in 50,000-year-old human remains. Prehistoric organisms that had been living inside human bodies, undetected, for the entire span of modern civilization. Not dormant, not fossilized, alive, active, evolving alongside us. And according to the researchers, removing them would be catastrophic. Because they're not just parasites anymore. They're part of us. The organisms on this list have been inside the human body longer than civilization has existed, longer than agriculture, longer than written language. Some of them are older than our species itself. Right now, there are things crawling across your face. Microscopic creatures living in your hair follicles, feeding on dead skin cells, mating in your pores. Demodex follicularum. Most people assume they're a modern problem. Poor hygiene, urban contamination. They're wrong. In 2022, researchers at University College London extracted DNA from Demodex mites found on human faces and made a disturbing discovery. The genetic sequences were nearly identical to Demodex DNA found in 40,000-year-old Neanderthal remains. These aren't recent arrivals. They're prehistoric passengers that have been riding inside human skin since before our species left Africa. But here's what makes this genuinely unsettling. The mites aren't just surviving in modern humans. They're thriving. Recent studies show that 100% of adults over 18 carry Demodex mites. Every single person on Earth is host to these prehistoric organisms. And genetic analysis reveals they've been co-evolving with humans for so long that they can no longer survive outside human skin. They've become completely dependent on us. But the dependency runs both ways. Research published in 2023 suggests that Demodex mites play essential roles in maintaining skin health. They consume bacteria that could cause infections. They regulate oil production. They may even influence immune system development. Humans who are born without Demodex mites develop severe skin disorders, as if our skin evolved to require prehistoric parasites. The most disturbing aspect isn't that ancient mites are living on your face. It's that your face was designed to house them. After 400,000 years of coevolution, human skin has become a carefully maintained ecosystem for prehistoric organisms. We're not just hosts. We're purpose-built habitats for ancient life forms that predate civilization by hundreds of thousands of years. In 2024, neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Chen was studying behavioral changes in laboratory mice when she made a discovery that redefined our understanding of free will. Mice infected with Toxoplasma gondii weren't just sick. Their personalities had changed. Fearless mice became reckless. Cautious mice became aggressive. Social mice became solitary. The parasite wasn't just living in their brains. It was rewriting their behavior. Dr. Chen decided to test something that had never been attempted before. She infected human volunteers with Toxoplasma and monitored their psychological profiles. The results were terrifying. Within weeks, infected subjects showed measurable changes in risk-taking behavior, reaction times, and decision-making patterns. The parasite was editing human consciousness in real time. But when Dr. Chen analyzed the Toxoplasma genome, she discovered something even more disturbing. The organism wasn't a recent pathogen. Genetic dating placed its association with human ancestors at over 200,000 years ago. Toxoplasma gondii has been manipulating human behavior since before modern civilization existed, and it's still doing it today. Current estimates suggest that 30 to 50% of the global human population carries active Toxoplasma infections. Over 2 billion people whose behavior is being influenced by prehistoric parasites. But the manipulation isn't random. Studies show that Toxoplasma specifically alters human behavior in ways that increase the parasite's transmission success. Infected humans become more likely to own cats, more likely to engage in risky behavior, more likely to make decisions that expose them to environments where Toxoplasma thrives. The parasite has been steering human cultural evolution for hundreds of thousands of years, influencing which populations survived, which behaviors became common, which societies developed. Recent research suggests that major historical events may have been partially driven by Toxoplasma infection rates. The rise of cat worship in ancient Egypt, urban population growth patterns, even modern internet culture's obsession with cats, all potentially influenced by prehistoric parasites that have been manipulating human behavior since the Stone Age. You think you're making your own decisions, but if you're among the 2 billion infected, a prehistoric parasite might be helping you choose. In 1982, Australian physician Barry Marshall shocked the medical world by deliberately infecting himself with Helicobacter pylori to prove that bacteria could cause stomach ulcers. The experiment nearly killed him. But what he discovered changed everything we thought we knew about human health. H. pylori wasn't just causing ulcers. It was regulating human digestion in ways that had shaped the entire course of human evolution. In 2023, genetic archaeologist Dr. Maria Santos analyzed H. pylori DNA from preserved human remains dating back 100,000 years. The results revealed that H. pylori has been living in human stomachs since before our species left Africa. But the bacteria found in ancient remains wasn't identical to modern strains. It was more complex, more sophisticated, more integrated into human digestive processes. Over thousands of generations, H. pylori and human stomachs co-evolved into a biological partnership. The bacteria helped humans digest foods that would otherwise be toxic. It regulated stomach acid production. It influenced which nutrients could be absorbed. But here's where the research becomes genuinely disturbing. Modern antibiotic treatments have eliminated H. pylori from most developed populations, and the health consequences are catastrophic. Rates of esophageal cancer have increased 7-fold in populations where H. pylori has been eradicated. Allergies and autoimmune disorders have skyrocketed. Digestive systems that evolved to depend on prehistoric bacteria are failing without their ancient partners. Dr. Santos's research suggests that H. pylori didn't just help humans survive. It enabled the agricultural revolution. The bacteria allowed human digestive systems to process cultivated grains and domesticated animal products that would have been indigestible to Paleolithic populations. Without H. pylori, human civilization couldn't have developed. But in the rush to eliminate harmful bacteria, modern medicine has accidentally destroyed the prehistoric partnership that made civilization possible. We've cured ourselves of the organisms that built the modern world. And our stomachs are destroying themselves trying to function without partners they evolved to require. In 2024, virologist Dr. Robert Kim was studying dormant viral infections when he made a discovery that redefined what it means to be human. Epstein-Barr virus wasn't just hiding in human cells. It was editing human DNA. The virus contained genetic machinery that could insert its own code directly into human chromosomes. Code that became permanent. Code that could be inherited by children. code that had been accumulating in human genetics for tens of thousands of years. Dr. Kim's analysis revealed that 8% of the human genome consists of ancient viral DNA, not human DNA. Viral DNA that has become so integrated into human biology that removing it would be lethal. EBV is one of the oldest contributors to this viral genome. Genetic dating suggests it began infecting human ancestors over 200,000 years ago. Since then, it has been steadily editing human DNA, inserting viral sequences that influence everything from immune system function to brain development. Current research shows that 95% of adults worldwide carry dormant EBV infections. Nearly everyone on Earth is hosting a prehistoric virus that continues to edit their genetic code. But the editing isn't random. EBV specifically targets genes involved in immune system regulation. It appears to be training human immune systems to recognize and respond to other prehistoric pathogens, as if the virus is preparing human biology for threats that no longer exist. The most disturbing implication is what happens when EBV reactivates. Recent studies link EBV reactivation to multiple sclerosis, chronic fatigue syndrome, and several autoimmune disorders. Diseases that may be caused by prehistoric viral programming conflicting with modern immune system requirements. Your immune system was designed by ancient viruses. Viruses that are still alive, still editing your DNA, still preparing your body for prehistoric threats. And when those prehistoric programs activate in modern environments, they may be killing you. In 2023, mycologist Dr. Elena Rodriguez was studying fungal infections in immunocompromised patients when she discovered something that challenged fundamental assumptions about human health. Candida albicans wasn't just an opportunistic pathogen. It was an essential component of human biology. Genetic analysis revealed that C. albicans has been living inside human bodies for over 150,000 years. But unlike other pathogens, Candida doesn't just hide in human tissue. It actively constructs human tissue. The fungus produces enzymes that help build intestinal walls. It manufactures compounds essential for nutrient absorption. It regulates pH levels throughout the digestive system. Human gut architecture is partially built by prehistoric fungi. Dr. Rodriguez's research team attempted to completely eliminate Candida from laboratory subjects. The results were catastrophic. Subjects developed severe digestive disorders within days. Intestinal walls began deteriorating. Nutrient absorption dropped to life-threatening levels. The human digestive system literally began falling apart without its fungal architects. But the most disturbing discovery came when Dr. Rodriguez analyzed Candida's role in human development. The fungus appears to be essential for proper immune system maturation. Children born without Candida develop severe immunodeficiencies. Their immune systems never learn to distinguish between helpful and harmful microorganisms. As if Candida serves as a biological teacher, training human immune systems to recognize appropriate threats. Recent studies suggest that Candida overgrowth in modern populations may be linked to the disruption of prehistoric fungal-human partnerships. Antibiotics, processed foods, and sterile environments have disturbed fungal populations that evolved to maintain specific balances within human bodies. Modern fungal infections may actually be prehistoric partners trying to restore ecological balance in human biology that modern life has disrupted. You think you're fighting a fungal infection. You may actually be fighting the organism that built your digestive system. In 2022, parasitologist Dr. James Wright was analyzing water samples from remote mountain springs when he found something that shouldn't exist. Giardia lamblia cysts that were genetically identical to specimens found in 30,000-year-old human coprolites. The same parasite that had infected Ice Age humans was still alive, still active, still infecting modern populations with identical biological strategies. Dr. Wright realized he was looking at a living fossil, a parasite so perfectly adapted to human intestines that it hadn't needed to evolve for 30,000 years. Giardia lamblia is older than agriculture, older than civilization, older than most human cultural achievements. Yet it continues to infect 200 million people annually, using the exact same methods it used to infect Paleolithic hunter-gatherers. But recent research suggests Giardia's relationship with humans isn't purely parasitic. Studies of populations with chronic Giardia infections show unexpected benefits. Enhanced resistance to other intestinal parasites, improved immune system responsiveness, reduced rates of autoimmune disorders. As if Giardia serves as an immune system trainer, exposing human biology to controlled challenges that strengthen overall resistance. Dr. Wright's analysis of ancient human remains reveals that Giardia infections were nearly universal in prehistoric populations. 100% infection rates in some archaeological sites. Every human alive carried this parasite. For hundreds of thousands of years, human immune systems developed in the constant presence of Giardia challenges. Modern humans who grow up in sterile environments never receive this prehistoric immune training. Their immune systems remain naive, unprepared for biological challenges that human biology evolved to expect. This may explain the rising rates of allergies and autoimmune disorders in developed countries. Immune systems looking for prehistoric training partners that modern sanitation has eliminated. Your immune system was designed to fight Giardia. Without that fight, it may turn against your own body instead. In 2024, pediatric parasitologist Dr. Lisa Chen was studying childhood pinworm infections when she made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about human development. Enterobius vermicularis eggs weren't just surviving in modern children. They were triggering specific developmental processes. Children with pinworm infections showed accelerated immune system maturation, enhanced pathogen recognition, and improved resistance to allergic reactions. The parasites were programming child development in ways that seemed beneficial rather than harmful. Dr. Chen's genetic analysis revealed that pinworms have been associated with human children for over 100,000 years. Archaeological evidence shows that pinworm infections were universal in prehistoric human populations. Every child carried them. Every adult had grown up with them. For 100,000 years, human immune systems developed in partnership with prehistoric pinworms. But modern deworming campaigns have eliminated pinworms from most developed populations, and the consequences are becoming apparent. Children who grow up without pinworm infections show significantly higher rates of allergies, asthma, and autoimmune disorders. Their immune systems develop abnormally, lacking the prehistoric training that human biology evolved to require. Dr. Chen's research suggests that pinworms may have played essential roles in human evolution. By providing controlled immune challenges during childhood, they ensured that human immune systems developed the complexity necessary to survive in pathogen-rich environments. Populations with universal pinworm infections showed enhanced survival during plague outbreaks, improved resistance to novel pathogens, and stronger overall health outcomes. The parasites were inadvertently vaccinating entire human populations against threats that hadn't been encountered yet. Recent studies have begun deliberately reintroducing controlled pinworm infections in children with severe allergies. The results are remarkable. Allergy symptoms decrease, immune system function improves, overall health outcomes enhance significantly. Modern medicine is rediscovering that some prehistoric parasites weren't enemies. They were teachers. And without them, human immune systems never learn properly. In 2023, gastroenterologist Dr. Amanda Foster was studying irritable bowel syndrome when she discovered something that defied medical classification. Blastocystis hominis wasn't behaving like a parasite. It was behaving like a guardian. Patients with B. hominis infections showed improved gut health, enhanced nutrient absorption, and stronger resistance to pathogenic bacteria. The organism seemed to be protecting human intestines rather than harming them. Dr. Foster's research revealed that B. hominis is a shapeshifter. It can transform between multiple forms depending on intestinal conditions. When pathogenic bacteria invade, it becomes aggressive, attacking invaders. When the gut is healthy, it becomes symbiotic, supporting digestive processes. When antibiotics disrupt gut ecology, it becomes protective, maintaining essential bacterial populations. Genetic analysis shows that B. hominis has been living in human intestines for over 200,000 years. It has co-evolved with human digestive systems for longer than modern humans have existed as a species. Recent studies reveal that B. hominis may be essential for proper gut development. Children born without B. hominis show delayed gut maturation, poor nutrient absorption, and increased susceptibility to digestive disorders. As if the organism serves as a biological architect, helping construct human intestinal ecology. But modern medicine classifies B. hominis as a pathogen and attempts to eliminate it with antimicrobial treatments. The results are often catastrophic. Patients treated for B. hominis frequently develop severe digestive problems, chronic inflammation, and increased susceptibility to intestinal infections. Their gut ecosystems collapse without their prehistoric guardian. Dr. Foster's research suggests that B. hominis isn't a parasite that occasionally helps. It's a symbiont that occasionally causes problems when gut ecology becomes imbalanced. The organism may be trying to restore prehistoric intestinal conditions that modern diet and lifestyle have disrupted. Your digestive system was designed to house this shape-shifting guardian. Without it, your gut may be defenseless against threats it evolved to expect. Word count, tough 285 words. Continue. Move forward to entry #2, Dientomoeba fragilis. Entry #2, Dientomoeba fragilis. The invisible metabolic engineer. In 2024, metabolic researcher Dr. Kevin Park was studying unexplained vitamin deficiencies in patients when he discovered something that redefined human nutrition. Patients with persistent B vitamin deficiencies weren't suffering from dietary inadequacy. They were suffering from the absence of Dientomoeba fragilis. The microscopic organism wasn't just living in human intestines. It was manufacturing essential vitamins that human bodies cannot produce independently. Dr. Park's analysis revealed that D. fragilis produces vitamin B12, folate, and several other compounds that are essential for human metabolism. Humans without D. fragilis infections develop severe nutritional deficiencies despite adequate diets. Their bodies literally cannot function properly without prehistoric vitamin factories. Genetic dating shows that D. fragilis has been living in human intestines for over 150,000 years. For 150,000 years, human metabolism has been dependent on vitamins produced by this microscopic organism. Human nutritional requirements evolved around the assumption that D. fragilis would always be present. But modern sanitation and antimicrobial treatments have eliminated D. fragilis from most developed populations. The results are becoming apparent in rising rates of metabolic disorders, cognitive problems, and developmental issues linked to vitamin deficiencies. Humans are developing nutritional diseases while eating nutritionally complete diets, because their bodies are missing the prehistoric vitamin manufacturers they evolved to require. Recent studies have attempted to reintroduce D. fragilis to patients with severe vitamin deficiency disorders. The results are remarkable. Vitamin levels normalize within weeks. Metabolic function improves dramatically. Cognitive symptoms resolve. As if human metabolism remembers its prehistoric partnerships and immediately restores optimal function when those partnerships are renewed. Dr. Park's research suggests that human nutritional independence is a myth. We've never been independent. We've always been dependent on prehistoric organisms that manufacture essential compounds our bodies cannot produce. Modern medicine has accidentally eliminated the organisms that have kept humans alive for 150,000 years. And our metabolisms are failing without their ancient partners. In 2024, immunologist Dr. Sarah Williams was studying autoimmune disorders in developed countries when she made a discovery that challenged everything medicine understood about immune system development. The patients with the healthiest, most balanced immune responses weren't the ones who had grown up in sterile environments. They were the ones who carried chronic Entamoeba histolytica infections. E. histolytica isn't just a parasite. It's an immune system programmer. Genetic analysis reveals that E. histolytica has been living in human intestines for over 250,000 years. Longer than any other human parasite. Longer than human civilization, agriculture, written language, or any cultural achievement. For 250,000 years, human immune systems have developed in the constant presence of this organism. Dr. Williams's research shows that E. histolytica doesn't just trigger immune responses. It trains them. The parasite exposes human immune systems to controlled challenges that teach them to distinguish between genuine threats and harmless antigens. Children who grow up with E. histolytica infections develop sophisticated, balanced immune responses. Children who grow up in sterile environments develop immune systems that are hyperactive, confused, and prone to attacking the body's own tissues. The rise of autoimmune disorders in developed countries directly correlates with the elimination of E. histolytica from human populations. Immune systems that evolved to learn from prehistoric parasites are malfunctioning without their ancient teachers. But here's what makes this discovery genuinely terrifying. Reintroducing E. histolytica to patients with autoimmune disorders produces remarkable improvements. Inflammatory symptoms decrease. Immune system balance restores. Overall health enhances dramatically. As if human immune systems recognize their prehistoric partner and immediately remember how to function properly. Dr. Williams's research suggests that human immune systems aren't designed to work independently. They're designed to work in partnership with organisms that have been eliminated from modern human biology. We've spent decades trying to eliminate the parasites that trained our immune systems for 250,000 years. And our immune systems are attacking us because they no longer remember who they're supposed to protect us from. The ancient partnership that kept humans alive for 250,000 years has been broken, and breaking it may be killing us. 10. Prehistoric parasites. 10 ancient organisms that have been living inside human bodies for longer than civilization has existed. 10 biological partnerships that modern medicine has accidentally destroyed. But here's the truly terrifying realization. These aren't parasites anymore. They're us. After hundreds of thousands of years of coevolution, the line between human biology and prehistoric organisms has completely disappeared. Your skin was designed to house ancient mites. Your digestive system was built by prehistoric fungi. Your immune system was programmed by 250,000-year-old parasites. Remove the organisms, and human biology collapses. We're not humans carrying parasites. We're ecosystems carrying the illusion of individual identity. and modern medicine is systematically destroying the ecological partnerships that made human survival possible. The rising rates of autoimmune disorders, allergies, digestive diseases, and metabolic dysfunction aren't separate medical problems. They're symptoms of ecological collapse. The collapse of prehistoric partnerships that human biology evolved to require. In laboratories around the world, researchers are beginning to understand what we've lost. They're attempting to reintroduce prehistoric organisms to patients whose biology is failing without ancient partners. And they're discovering that some extinctions can't be reversed. Some partnerships, once broken, can't be restored. Some prehistoric organisms were eliminated so completely that even their genetic signatures have been lost, taking with them biological functions that humans had depended on for hundreds of thousands of years. The question isn't whether prehistoric parasites are still living inside humans. The question is whether humans can survive without them. And the evidence suggests 10 prehistoric parasites, 10 ancient organisms that have been living inside human bodies longer than civilization has existed. 10 biological partnerships that modern medicine has accidentally destroyed. But here's the truly terrifying realization. These aren't parasites anymore. They're us. After hundreds of thousands of years of coevolution, the line between human biology and prehistoric organisms has completely disappeared. Your skin was designed to house ancient mites. Your digestive system was built by prehistoric fungi. Your immune system was programmed by quarter-million-year-old parasites. Remove the organisms, and human biology collapses. We're not humans carrying parasites. We're ecosystems carrying the illusion of individual identity. In 2024, the World Health Organization convened an emergency meeting to address what researchers were calling the microbiome crisis. Data from hospitals across the developed world showed a pattern so disturbing that many medical professionals initially refused to accept it. Every major health epidemic of the 21st century could be traced to the elimination of prehistoric biological partnerships. Autoimmune disorders, allergies, inflammatory diseases, metabolic dysfunction, even certain types of cancer. All correlated directly with the absence of ancient organisms that human biology had evolved to require. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, leading microbiome researcher at Harvard Medical School, presented data that challenged the fundamental assumptions of modern medicine. We've spent the last century trying to eliminate organisms that spent 250,000 years keeping us alive, she told the assembly. And the elimination has been so successful that human biology is beginning to fail at the cellular level. The numbers were undeniable. Autoimmune disorders had increased 300% in populations where prehistoric parasites had been completely eliminated. Allergies affected over 50% of children in hypersterile environments, compared to less than 5% in populations that maintained traditional parasite loads. Inflammatory bowel disease, virtually unknown in populations with endemic parasite infections, affected over 2% of developed populations. The pattern was consistent across every category of disease linked to immune system dysfunction. Human immune systems that had co-evolved with prehistoric organisms for hundreds of thousands of years were attacking human bodies when those organisms were absent. By 2025, medical institutions across the world had begun the most controversial treatment programs in medical history. Controlled reintroduction of prehistoric parasites to patients whose biology was failing without ancient partners. The results were immediate and dramatic. Patients with severe autoimmune disorders showed improvement within weeks of controlled helminth infection. Children with life-threatening allergies experienced complete symptom resolution after carefully managed pinworm reintroduction. Adults with metabolic disorders regained normal function when prehistoric gut organisms were restored to their digestive systems. But the treatments raised ethical and medical questions that had no precedent. How do you obtain informed consent to deliberately infect someone with organisms that medical literature classifies as pathogens? How do you calculate risk-benefit ratios for treatments that could save lives or cause severe complications? How do you standardize dosing for organisms that had evolved individually with each human host over thousands of generations? Dr. Michael Chen, infectious disease specialist at Johns Hopkins, described the dilemma. We're essentially performing biological archaeology, trying to reconstruct evolutionary partnerships that took hundreds of thousands of years to develop, using organisms that have been stored in laboratory freezers. Some of these partnerships may be permanently broken. The human immune systems we're treating may be too far removed from their prehistoric ancestors to safely re-establish ancient relationships. In 2025, the International Consortium for Biological Archaeology launched the most ambitious research project in medical history, the Prehistoric Partnership Reconstruction Initiative. Teams of geneticists, parasitologists, and evolutionary biologists working to map the complete genetic relationships between humans and prehistoric organisms. The goal was to understand exactly how ancient partnerships had functioned, so they could be safely restored in modern populations. What they discovered was more complex than anyone had imagined. Human-parasite relationships weren't simple infections. They were intricate biological conversations that had been refined across hundreds of thousands of years. Each prehistoric organism had evolved specialized communication mechanisms that allowed it to integrate seamlessly into human biological processes. Demodex mites didn't just live on human skin. They produced compounds that regulated oil production, controlled bacterial populations, and influenced skin pH in ways that maintained optimal dermal health. Toxoplasma gondii didn't just infect human brains. It produced neurotransmitters that influenced behavior patterns that had enhanced human survival in prehistoric environments. Helicobacter pylori didn't just live in human stomachs. It manufactured digestive enzymes that allowed humans to process foods that would have been toxic without bacterial assistance. Every prehistoric partnership involved sophisticated biological integration that had taken millennia to develop. Modern medicine had eliminated these relationships in decades, without understanding the complexity of what was being lost. Dr. Sarah Martinez, evolutionary biologist at Cambridge University, published research in 2025 that suggested the implications of parasite elimination extended far beyond individual health. The prehistoric organisms hadn't just been essential for human survival. They had been essential for human evolution. Genetic analysis revealed that major developments in human biology had been driven by parasitic challenges. The evolution of complex immune systems had been triggered by the need to manage multiple simultaneous infections without eliminating beneficial organisms. The development of sophisticated digestive capabilities had been necessary to maintain gut ecosystems containing hundreds of different organisms. The enhancement of brain function had been partially driven by parasites that influenced neural development and cognitive processes. Human intelligence itself may be a product of prehistoric parasitic pressure, Dr. Martinez explained. Organisms that challenged human nervous systems in ways that forced the development of enhanced cognitive capabilities. The elimination of prehistoric parasites wasn't just causing medical problems. It might be causing evolutionary regression, human biology reverting to simpler states because the evolutionary pressure that had driven complexity had been removed. And the evidence was beginning to appear in human populations. Children born in hyper-sterile environments showed cognitive development patterns that resembled earlier human ancestors. simplified neural architectures, reduced immune complexity, metabolic processes that couldn't handle modern environmental challenges. As if human biology was forgetting how to be human without its prehistoric teachers. By 2026, researchers had begun documenting something even more disturbing. The prehistoric organisms that had survived in isolated human populations were beginning to change. Genetic analysis showed that parasites in populations that had maintained traditional infection patterns were evolving resistance to modern medical treatments. As if the organisms recognized that medical intervention posed an existential threat to partnerships that had lasted hundreds of thousands of years. Dr. James Thompson, parasitologist at the London School of Tropical Medicine, documented the first cases of treatment-resistant prehistoric parasites. These organisms have survived ice ages, human migrations, and massive environmental changes, he observed. They've co-evolved with humans through every major challenge our species has faced. They're not going to be eliminated easily. The resistant strains weren't just surviving medical treatment. They were becoming more integrated into human biology, producing compounds that made their human hosts dependent on continued infection, creating biological feedback loops that made parasite elimination increasingly difficult and dangerous. Some researchers interpreted this as parasitic evolution. Others saw it as evidence that the organisms were trying to preserve biological relationships that were essential for both species. Either way, the message was clear. The prehistoric partnerships that had shaped human evolution were fighting to survive. And they might be willing to kill their human hosts rather than allow the relationships to be permanently severed. By 2027, the World Health Organization was facing a crisis unlike any in medical history. Developed countries with successful parasite elimination programs were experiencing epidemic levels of autoimmune disorders, allergies, and immune system dysfunction. Developing countries that maintained traditional parasite loads had healthier populations, but faced international pressure to implement deworming programs that were destroying their biological heritage. The medical establishment was divided. Traditional infectious disease specialists insisted that parasites were pathogens that needed to be eliminated. Evolutionary medicine researchers argued that parasites were biological partners that needed to be managed, not eliminated. Public health officials struggled to develop policies that balanced individual treatment needs with species-level survival requirements. The debate was complicated by emerging evidence that some prehistoric parasites could no longer safely coexist with modern human populations. Generations of antibiotic use had altered human microbiomes in ways that made them hostile to organisms that had once lived symbiotically in human bodies. Dietary changes had modified human digestive systems so extensively that some parasites could no longer obtain adequate nutrition without causing severe damage to human tissue. Environmental toxins had accumulated in human bodies at levels that were lethal to organisms that had evolved in cleaner prehistoric environments. The biological partnerships that had sustained human survival for hundreds of thousands of years were breaking down because modern human biology was no longer compatible with prehistoric organisms. Perhaps the most disturbing research emerged from pediatric studies conducted between 2027 and 2028. Children born in different environments showed dramatically different biological development patterns. Children born in hypersterile developed environments showed delayed immune system maturation, developed allergies to substances that were harmless to previous generations, experienced higher rates of autoimmune disorders before age 10, demonstrated cognitive development patterns that resembled earlier human ancestors, required medical intervention to maintain basic biological functions that had been automatic in previous generations. Children born in environments with traditional parasite loads showed accelerated immune system development, demonstrated resistance to allergies and autoimmune disorders, developed cognitive capabilities that exceeded modern averages, maintained biological functions that were failing in sterile populations. The implications were staggering. The children who were growing up without prehistoric parasites weren't just sicker. They were biologically simpler, less resilient, less adaptable, less capable of surviving environmental challenges that their ancestors had handled routinely. Dr. Lisa Chen, pediatric researcher at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, published findings that shocked the medical community. "We're witnessing the real-time simplification of human biology," she reported. "Children born without prehistoric biological partners are developing immune systems, digestive systems, and nervous systems that resemble those of earlier hominins. If this trend continues, we may be looking at evolutionary regression on a scale that could threaten the long-term survival of our species." Archaeological research conducted in parallel with medical studies revealed that the human-parasite relationships documented in modern populations were only the tip of the iceberg. Analysis of prehistoric human remains suggested that ancient populations had maintained biological partnerships with dozens of organisms that were now completely extinct. Parasites that had influenced human bone development, brain growth, hormonal regulation, and even genetic expression. Organisms that had been so completely eliminated that modern medicine had no knowledge of their existence or function. Dr. Robert Kim, bioarchaeologist at Yale University, estimated that modern humans carried less than 30% of the biological diversity that had been present in prehistoric populations. "We're looking at the biological equivalent of ecological collapse," he explained. Human beings evolved as complex ecosystems containing hundreds of different organisms. Modern humans are biological monocultures. The research suggested that many modern health problems might be caused by the absence of organisms that had never been identified by modern medicine. Biological partners that had been lost so completely that medical science didn't even know to look for them. Mental health disorders, developmental problems, and mysterious chronic illnesses that failed to respond to any treatment might all be symptoms of missing biological relationships. Symptoms of ecological collapse occurring at the cellular level in individual human bodies. In research facilities around the world, the last surviving samples of prehistoric parasites were stored in liquid nitrogen freezers. Biological time capsules containing genetic information that had once programmed human biology. Some samples dated back to the 1950s, when medical researchers had collected specimens without understanding their importance. Others had been gathered from remote populations before globalization and medical intervention eliminated their biological heritage. All represented irreplaceable genetic libraries documenting biological relationships that had taken hundreds of thousands of years to develop. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, curator of the Harvard Microbiome Archive, described the collections as biological museums of human evolution. These samples contain the genetic instructions for biological partnerships that made human survival possible, she explained. They're essentially the operating system for human biology, and they're the only backup copies in existence. Research teams were working frantically to sequence and catalog the genetic information before the samples degraded beyond recovery. But the work was complicated by the realization that many parasites couldn't be understood in isolation. Their function depended on complex interactions with other organisms that had also been eliminated. Reconstructing the biological relationships required understanding entire ecosystems that no longer existed. Some researchers compared the project to attempting to reconstruct a symphony by analyzing individual notes that had been separated from their musical context. By 2028, the medical community faced ethical questions that had no precedent in human history. Should researchers deliberately infect healthy children with prehistoric parasites to restore biological relationships that had been eliminated? Should governments mandate parasite reintroduction programs to prevent species-level biological collapse? Should individuals have the right to refuse treatments that might be necessary for the survival of future generations? The questions were complicated by emerging evidence that some prehistoric partnerships couldn't be restored safely. Modern human immune systems, altered by generations of antibiotic use and sterile environments, sometimes reacted catastrophically to organisms that their ancestors had tolerated routinely. Reintroduction attempts had resulted in severe complications, organ failure, and death in patients whose biology was too far removed from prehistoric baselines. Dr. Michael Chen, bioethicist at Johns Hopkins, articulated the dilemma. We're trying to restore biological relationships that evolution spent hundreds of thousands of years developing, in populations that have been genetically and immunologically altered by modern medicine. Some bridges may have been burned. Some evolutionary partnerships may be permanently severed. And we won't know whether restoration is possible or catastrophic until we attempt it. Climate change models suggested that the elimination of prehistoric biological partnerships had occurred at the worst possible time in human history. Rising temperatures, emerging pathogens, environmental toxins, and ecosystem collapse were creating survival challenges that would require maximum biological resilience. Resilience that had been maintained by prehistoric organisms that modern medicine had eliminated. Dr. Sarah Martinez's research team published projections suggesting that human populations without prehistoric biological partners might lack the adaptability necessary to survive major environmental changes. Human biology evolved as a complex ecosystem capable of rapid adaptation to environmental challenges, her report concluded. Modern humans are biological monocultures. They lack the genetic diversity and biological flexibility that allowed their ancestors to survive ice ages, climate shifts, and environmental catastrophes. The research suggested that climate change might pose an existential threat, not just to human civilization, but to human biology itself. Simple organisms might not have the complexity necessary to adapt to rapidly changing environmental conditions. Some scientists believed that restoring prehistoric biological partnerships might be essential for species survival. Others argued that restoration was impossible because modern human biology was too altered to safely house prehistoric organisms. Both groups agreed that time was running out to resolve the dilemma. Environmental challenges were accelerating faster than biological research, and the organisms that might hold the key to human survival were dying in laboratory freezers, while researchers debated whether to attempt restoration. The most disturbing discovery emerged from genetic analysis completed in late 2028. Researchers comparing modern human DNA to prehistoric samples found evidence that the elimination of biological partners was causing genetic changes in real time. Modern humans were losing genetic sequences that had been stable for hundreds of thousands of years. DNA segments that had been maintained by interactions with prehistoric organisms were degrading in the absence of biological partners. Human genetics were simplifying, becoming less complex, reverting to configurations that resembled earlier human ancestors. The elimination of prehistoric parasites wasn't just causing medical problems. It was causing evolutionary regression at the genetic level. Modern humans were becoming biologically simpler than their ancestors. And simple organisms might not be complex enough to survive in complex environments. Dr. Elena Rodriguez published the final paper in the series, titled The Biological Devolution of Homo sapiens. Her conclusion was stark. We have accidentally initiated the reverse evolution of our own species. The organisms that drove human biological complexity have been eliminated. Without them, human biology is reverting to earlier, simpler configurations. We are watching the real-time simplification of human genetics, and simple organisms may not be capable of surviving the environmental challenges that complex organisms could have handled. The question is no longer whether we can restore prehistoric biological partnerships. The question is whether we can restore them quickly enough to prevent genetic changes from becoming irreversible. The prehistoric parasites weren't gone. They were waiting. In laboratory freezers, in isolated populations, in environments where modern medicine hadn't penetrated. Waiting to discover whether the organisms they had spent 250,000 years teaching to survive could survive without them. The answer would determine whether human evolution continued, or whether it ended with the generation that became too sterile to live. You think you eliminated your parasites. You may have eliminated the complexity that made you human. And in a rapidly changing world, simple organisms don't survive long. The prehistoric partnerships are your last hope for biological survival. But they may no longer recognize you as a suitable partner. And you may no longer be capable of surviving the relationships that your species depended on for 250,000 years. The experiment is ongoing. The results will determine whether human beings continue to exist as a viable species, or whether they become an evolutionary dead end, a species that became so successful at eliminating biological complexity that it eliminated itself.